Good evening. I'm Daquandre Rankins. I'm here today to talk about WWB number two. Please forgive me if you see me looking down. I'm looking at my laptop to look at some notes that I took on the article. Um, so let's start. So let's get started. Share aha moment. One aha moment that I did have is not really an aha moment. It's more so of a understanding that the way you talk to a child, such as your tone, you have to make sure you're very mono or you are very respectful to the child. One thing I learned in creative activities last semester is definitely you have to get down to a child's level, such as you have to meet them not only like get down physically to their level, but actually go down to where they are mentally as well, because you have to be able to have a certain tone with the child. You have to be able to be able to get through to a child. So you have to be able to let the child know, hey, that this is what I'm saying, that this is how I'm saying it, but not in a way of saying, of necessarily being mean, because your way of saying it to a child may not be the same way you say it to an adult, or like your way of saying it. Well, actually, let me switch that. Like your way of saying something to an adult is not the same way you say it to a child. You understand what I'm saying? So you have to be able to keep your tone keep your tone very mono and very laid back. To be honest, certain words you can't say when talking to a child, especially when you have a tone of hardness or you have a very hard voice, or a voice that carries. So some people may see it as confident, but some children may see it as I'm scared, or he's talking, or he or she is talking to me very rude, or or he or she is on very mean. Okay, so let's go to question number two. Provide an example of how a child is able to function in his or her own environment through strategies provided by caring, educators, the caring educators and competent. I think I said that wrong. But one way I did see that, one example I did see as I was reading, is a child learns how to pretend. Basically using their cognitive and social strategies to basically pretend. So if they don't understand the language or even understand what the other children are talking about, they learn how to pretend just so they can feel like they are involved. Some children very much have that playful type of thing of, oh yeah, I understand what you're saying, blah blah blah. I very much understand you, blah blah blah. But really, they don't. Um, a lot of children do pick on each other um, because they either think they understand it, or they really don't understand it, or they don't catch on it real quick. So that's why some children pretend as if like they understand what their peer is talking about. Me personally, I do remember as a child, if I didn't know what you were talking about, personally, I'm a blunt person. So personally, I would just tell you, I don't know what you're talking about. But sometimes I did have my moments. I'd be like, yeah, I do know what you're talking about. Yes, I do. I do. But I really didn't. So I know. So therefore, I know it's much harder for a child who does not understand English, or can't grasp the language of English, to try to understand what their peer is talking about. But their peer is talking in English, but they understand more Spanish than they do English. So I can only imagine how it is for a child that literally um, has English as their, has Spanish as their primary language, and is trying to understand English for the first time. Question number Question number three: discuss whether or not you have been exposed to children. Um, discuss in the brief. I have been exposed to children. Not very much. Quite understanding the question. I'm not sure if you want me to go with. have I been exposed to children that have had a that had a primary language of Spanish and try to understand English, or if you want me to tell about my experience with children at all. But I'm a guess you want me talking about the children. Have I been exposed to children that have had a primary language of Spanish? Um, Personally, I have not been exposed to children that have had a primary language of Spanish. Personally, I've always dealt with children who have had a primary language of, this is sad to say, but Ebonics. The parents have not necessarily worked with their child of how to speak correctly, or how to formulate a sentence together. Some parents think that you ain't gonna do this, or you ain't finna do that. Like, some of those words that I just combined in a sentence is not correct. And a lot of children think that that's the way of speaking. So I've been around those type of children before, but I never ever. Well, I wouldn't say I never ever experienced it, but I would say I probably have experienced a child who has had a primary language of Spanish, but necessarily didn't pay any type of attention to that. So I would say I probably have, but I fully can't remember right now. But one thing I can honestly say, I couldn't even imagine going through that because personally, I can barely grasp English. Just kidding. But I'm saying the English, it is very much documented. English is the hardest language to try to understand because it very much so is. So people can't really understand English that great. Even people that speak English can't even understand English itself because English is not the easiest language to try to understand. So I can only imagine trying to be a child that's like 4 or 5, trying to grasp an understanding of why why am I not saying this correctly, or how come he's saying something different than what I'm saying. So it can be difficult at times. I can definitely understand that. Let's go to question number 4, last but not least. Like discuss how you will or could use like strategies to address um, in the future. One strategy I would suggest or do, one thing I definitely read in the article, is definitely being patient. Being patient with the child and really understanding that every child is different, essentially. And understanding that, one, you have to um, really understand each child for themselves. You have to be able to, I think I just said that twice, but I think I said it twice, but it meant the same thing. Um, Sorry, it's been a long day. But essentially, just being able to have that patience and just being able to work with the child, because some children may not necessarily be dumb, but they really don't understand what you're saying. Especially children who have their first language, well, their primary language as Spanish. So basically trying to understand English and trying to grasp a hold on to English, and definitely trying not to get frustrated while in class or throwing temper tantrums. The teacher or the educator they have to be patient with the child. You have to. Well, me personally, I know I personally will be patient with the child. I would try to use my resources as much as I can. If I have a coworker or other educator that speaks Spanish, I will have them try to translate what I'm saying to the child, and basically trying to get them to understand what I'm saying, or even try to um, use examples or use pictures of what I'm saying. So just being able to really understand and grasp. Sorry, basically having patience and basically making sure that each educator understands um, understands that every child is not the same, and just being able to um, grasp their understanding. I think that was all of the questions that we had for this week. I look forward to going into next week speaking about WWB number 3, and I look forward to going on with this last. Thank you so much, and you guys have a great night.